Welcome to The Backstory. I'm your host, Anne Hancock Toomey. Over the course of my career, I've had the privilege to work with and learn from and guide some incredible leaders, mostly in healthcare, but not always. The Backstory is a chance for me to talk to some of them, unpack who they are and where they came from, and how it all influences who they are today and how they lead. Ultimately, each conversation offers a case study in what I'm calling authentic leadership. Let me now invite you into our conversation for the real backstory. David Jarrard.
And Hancock Toomey.
This is fun.
What a pleasure to be here.
What an honor to get to talk with one of the most influential leaders that I've ever had the privilege to work with.
It's a real pleasure to be here with you and explore this stuff and to be here with you.
I know.
What has it been? 20 years? 20
Something
plus
like
years?
that, 20 plus years. Yes. So I am joined by none other than David Jarrard, who is a former journalist, longtime public affairs counselor, founding CEO, my co-founding partner of Jarrard, now serves as our executive chairman. David is known across the industry for his sage counsel and sharp opinions, sometimes counterintuitive opinions. He is the consummate storyteller and needle threader of all things politics, but known to those of us who've worked for him and with him for a long time as a maximizer of talent and a truly inspirational visionary. What a pleasure to get to spend time with you, my longtime friend and partner and mentor and boss and all the things. There's an ocean of history here.
Traveling companion.
This is true. Traveling companion.
In this journey.
So we, David, have had the opportunity to work with a lot of CEOs and a lot of leaders over the years. And their leadership styles vary widely, as do the impact they're able to have and the success that they're able to achieve. And I'm excited to have the opportunity to unpack a little bit about what it takes to be the kind of leader that people want to follow time and again. The ones who are truly multipliers of talent and who get the best results from those who work with them because of the environment they create. And I think you are absolutely one of those people. So we're going to dig in.
Oh my God. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, but we're not going to start with today. We're not going to start with the seasoned professional that you are.
We're going to back up?
We're going to back up.
Yeah, let's back it up.
We're getting the Wayback Machine, David. One of your favorite phrases. So we're going to get in the Wayback Machine, and we are going to go back to when you didn't know anything about healthcare or really communications or maybe even leadership. And you talk a lot about growing up in East Tennessee. And I love those stories and how they shaped you. And I'd love for you to share just a little bit about where you grew up, how you grew up.
I did grow up in East Tennessee near a city called Oak Ridge, which is also called the Atomic City. And it was a city that was born during World War II. My family reflected sort of both elements of the original East Tennessee, rural East Tennessee, from my mom, whose family had been there for generations, and my father, who was a physicist, who was brought to Oak Ridge from Missouri to work in the Oak Ridge National Labs. And so their marriage and my family was a combination of this grassroots in the foothills of Appalachia family and lifestyle and thinking, and my father, who was a physicist and went on to become a computer programmer, an entrepreneur, and information systems guru. We had both this sort of rootsy connection to the land and what's real, and this ability to understand and talk about complex things and explore them very intellectually. It was a very interesting place to be.
I feel some foreshadowing. Okay, I remember you talking about one of your first jobs at the Oak Ridger.
Yes.
Talk about that.
One of the first jobs I was in high school at the moment was working at the time was at the Oak Ridger, which was an afternoon newspaper Monday through Friday because who wants to work on the weekends. And there was a fellow named Dick Smizer, who was the editor there, who came to start the paper in 1944, I think.
Okay.
So he started it when it was a government, basically a fort, and then stayed with it and evolved the paper during those years. So we had a bit of that sort of Oak Ridge sort of physicist, scientist mentality to them. And one of the lessons I got from him was the lessons of the preciseness of language. Like there would be arguments over the word Arctic versus Arctic.
Okay.
A-R-T-I-C versus A-R-C-T-I-C, and which one was right and which one was wrong, and how the right word used in the right place could make a difference in how language worked in the story.
So,
And just storytelling, and what can you do in a 10-inch story in 5 paragraphs,
yeah.
and to get it done by deadline. All the basics of journalism were rooted there.
So is that where you got the bug to be a journalist?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what you could do with a press card is having a reason to be places. Yeah. I'm an introvert, so I would not attend things or go to crime scenes for sure, or fires or major events. But with a press card, you have a reason to walk to the tape and watch and see and ask questions. I have no reason to ask a question, but with a press card, you have to answer my question.
Absolutely.
And that was very empowering.
Okay, well, this is a podcast about leadership. So was Mr. Smizer the first leader who you felt like really influenced you?
Influenced me, yes, not necessarily in the best way.
Okay.
I guess the first leader who influenced me was my father.
Yeah.
In so many ways, and that could be its own book about how significant he is in shaping me. Maybe we're all like that particularly when we reach later years as a parent and beyond, you hear your parent coming out in yourself.
Yeah.
Like even in the language you use or the things that you think, and I see myself embody him sometimes. I'm proud of that, honor that. No, but Dick was horrific as a manager. He was great in the understanding of language and the preciseness of language and running a business and getting the paper out on deadline and all that. But he was a typical old school newspaper screamer. He's the kind who would create urgency even though no urgency was necessary, because he loved the excitement of deadlines. He loved the excitement of hitting the mark or not hitting the mark. And so he would scream and throw papers, and confetti would go into the air, which was basically the notes on his desk. It was delightful. And a lesson I would take away from that is not to be that. Not helpful.
Not motivating?
Not helpful, not energizing.
No.
And so it's an anti-lesson.
Okay.
About that.
Limiting, you would say.
It was limiting. It was shaping, but limiting.
Yeah. Interesting. So talk about where you went from there. What were some of the stops along the way in your career and what did those roles teach you?
So I went to Middle Tennessee State University and got a job working at the Brentwood Journal, which was a weekly here in Brentwood. At the time, started with a bunch of people who had been part of Gannett out of Cocoa Beach, actually, and they rallied up here to create something that would be a precursor to what would become USA Today.
Ah, okay.
Charles Ogilvie, I think, and Bob Schwartzman and that crew. Anyway, they gave me an introduction to journalism that actually paid me enough to pay for my expenses while I was going to MTSU, which was great. And then shortly after that, got a job as a police beat reporter, night police beat reporter at the Tennessean. That was my sophomore year. That became as much my education as whatever classes I was taking at
I bet.
MTSU. Oh, my gosh.
So you just rode around the back of a police car? Or the front of a police car, hopefully?
Depending on who else was in the police car. But, yeah, and to have come from the relative sort of safe isolation of East Tennessee and Oak Ridge to be introduced to, even then, Nashville was a very big city compared to Oak Ridge and Knoxville, and a very different side led to very different populations and stories that were told and people who were there, and to experience that without the filter of school or family, but right there in the front seat of a police car, driving around, seeing the real world and engaging with it. Different lives and different stories that I would have never been exposed to otherwise. It certainly changed my worldview.
Do you have a favorite memory from that time? Best story?
Oh, so many favorite memories. There are great stories that I was able to cover in rural Tennessee, for example, rural Middle Tennessee. For example, I went to a place called Estill Springs, Tennessee, and there was a sighting, because this was a thing at the time, to see Jesus on an appliance. And so there was an image of, depending on how you looked at it, either Jesus or Willie Nelson on the side of a freezer that was sitting on the front porch of a mobile home in Estill Springs, Tennessee. And people were coming from all over.
Wow.
Right, to watch it at night, right when the sun hit a certain point. The dents in the freezer revealed this image, and it was, for some people, it was a carnival and a circus, and for some people it was a holy event. And buses were coming in to see it and experience it. And to have the opportunity to watch that as an observer and write about it and study it, it's just was a fantastic opportunity, and I'm really fortunate the Tennessean gave me the chance to ride around and write stories like that.
Yes. How long did you work at the Tennessean? Because you were there after you graduated too, right?
I stayed there 3 or 4 years after I graduated, yeah. And there was a lot of influences to me came from the process of journalism. And certainly the people were there, but also the demands of writing accurately every day, turning out copy and storytelling.
Yeah. Were there particular leaders there or leadership styles that you saw exhibited there that either, I don't know, influenced you positively or?
Yeah, there was a fellow named Frank Gibson who was also an advisor to MTSU, and he was part of the reason that I got connected to the Tennessean. In his generosity for welcoming newbies like me and explaining how the system works, the system of journalism works, as well as what makes a good story and what doesn't make a good story, and how the paragraphs need to connect to one another and how one tale hooks to the next paragraph, was magic. It was just exceptional. He was a walking journalism class and a First Amendment proponent that still influences me today. One certainly vestige of the Tennessean that continues to resonate with me is the power of the free market of ideas and the importance of the First Amendment, which is, I think, very relevant to today's conversation. It is very much on my mind.
Okay, so you were a journalist for your formative years, certainly through
Journalist
high
in
school,
formative years, yes.
college, a little beyond college. So
Yes.
why did you leave journalism? Money, yeah.
Money was key. I'm teasing a little bit. So money's part of it, but also the regularity of schedule. Because when you work in the newsroom, particularly in a daily newspaper, you never know. There's not much of a life, which is great because it's a young person's game, by and large, and should be. So I was ready at that point for a different way of living, and the choice was leave town to go to the next market and move up, or find something else to do that took advantage of my storytelling skills and some of the connections I made in the community, because journalists, once they understand a city and a community and the people underneath it who make it thrive and move, take advantage of that network. And not take advantage in a negative way, but become part of it.
Yeah.
And so there were groups like that who've been part of the Lamar Alexander administration and some other local government efforts who were beginning to form political consultancies and consulting groups, and asked me to join, and I was happy to do it. It was a fun way to take what I knew with, in a sense, a lot of the people that I knew, and do something that was 10 degrees different.
Okay. And so what agency was that? What was your first agency?
It was the Ingram Group.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And you were there in fits and starts, right, for many years?
Yeah, I was there for 3 or 4 years. It was started by Tom Ingram, who was a deputy governor of Tennessee, and his partner, Louis Levine, who was also deputy governor of Tennessee under Lamar. And they started this political consulting shop, which was a mixture of public affairs and PR and lobbying. Nashville was small then, so you had to be all these things. Yeah, and I was there for 3 or 4 years until one of their clients, called Whittle Communications, became so significant a client that Tom Ingram and I, decided to leave Nashville and go back to Knoxville, my hometown, where Whittle was based, to work for Chris and his communications company.
Okay.
Big media company. We had 54 media properties, we called them, as magazines and books and posters and television, Channel 1 news program.
I remember it.
We had special reports television with Joan London.
Yes.
We had studios in California and offices at 53rd and Park in New York, and it was incredible.
So that was your introduction to healthcare.
It was my introduction to healthcare with Physicians Weekly and Special Reports Television. We were in 54,000 doctors' waiting rooms.
You couldn't escape Joan
disc.
London when you went to the doctor.
Loved Joan.
I was growing up.
She was there. She was on a laser disc playing over and over because there was no internet, there was no cable. It was all physical media property that was delivered by van, and the poor receptionist had to listen to it over and over.
Oh, man.
Every hour. But yes, through that really began my introduction into physicians' offices and physicians' way of being, and the power of physician receptionists and office managers and what they would allow and didn't allow. It was a great time.
That was a company that scaled quickly while you were a part of it.
It did.
Right.
It did. They brought in outside investors, particularly given some of the infrastructure they had to acquire, so they brought in outsiders. And I got a little bit of sense when I joined the Ingram Group, but certainly a sense when I joined Whittle as a corporate communicator of the other side of the table.
Yeah.
If I was a reporter on one side of the table watching and telling the story that I saw, going into consulting and going into corporate communications life, I saw how the story was being created.
Yes.
Right, and the significant power of outside storytellers to what you do. You and I know now, how much time a reporter's call can take. A reporter can call and just have a very simple question, and suddenly you find yourself engrossed in work trying to anticipate why that question is being asked, the story you want to tell about it, and all the ramifications and cascading effects of it. I got a taste of that at Whittle.
Did it produce empathy in you for
the
first time for some of these folks?
I was stunned.
Yeah.
Because I did not know when I was a reporter. I thought I'd play some calls at 5 o'clock. I'll go home because that way when they come into work, I did not know like the fire alarms that went off when I placed those calls.
Right.
And if I had grown older as a reporter, I think I would have known. I would have gotten a better sense of it. But the time that I didn't. So that was revealing to me. And in some cases, empathy, in some cases, a little consternation.
Yeah.
Which I think is helpful to us and our clients. But a little consternation meaning, look, they're just asking a question.
Right.
Just answer the questions that's been asked. We don't have to launch the Queen Mary here. Let's just talk to the reporter and understand that they're humans. That was helpful.
Okay, so you were with Whittle for a little while.
Yes.
And then this is now, mid-90s-ish?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then you came back, right, to Nashville, to the Ingram Group?
I did. I came back to Nashville and joined a great agency here in town, back into agency world.
Very good. Okay, so at that point, if you think back, were there like mistakes that you made or crossroads where you took one path and you think back about a different path that you should have considered more fully or no?
Yeah, we're right at one of those crossroads.
Okay.
And so there were some mindful moments at that time, actually sometimes a retreat, for me to understand the path and try to understand sort of the consequences of what decision not only would be satisfying today, but would be satisfying years into the future. My family played an important role in that for me, but also it helped me become a little more aware of what I actually enjoyed, like what was satisfying to me, and that brought me back to corporate life. While I enjoyed public relations life, while I enjoyed the corporate life, it was very mono-focused. Mm-hmm. One company, every day, same thing, over and over again, and there's great benefit to that because you get deep and you get very focused and you understand who you're talking to and who you're talking through. Mm-hmm. But a beauty of agency life is the variety, the scope and scale of all that you get involved in and the different ways your curiosity can be piqued and satisfied in this conversation with that person, and that you can take one lesson here and take it to another. I remember that I very much enjoyed that and wanted to get back into that. So I did.
Okay, so you mentioned a word that I want to dig a little deeper into, and that is that as you were at this crossroads and you're trying to figure out which way do I go, because I've got great opportunities either way because of who I am and what I've created. You mentioned the word retreat.
Yes.
And that you were really discerning about which way do I go and weighing those options. Leaders face those crossroads, I would argue, on every day, multiple times a day in their business life and certainly in their careers multiple times over the years. So how do you take apart that tension, right? Those sort of options that you're weighing?
It's a great question. It's a really important question. And I'm a big believer in a host of what I think of as restful words or retreat words to recreate and reconstruct and repair and reform and remember. Like all those words are about looking back, but also looking to something that exists, but you can forget through sort of the haze and the barriers that are created in the sort of day-to-day noise of living.
Yeah.
So pulling back from that is, I have found over and over to be significantly important to the decisions I made. But the decisions I made were based on what I've understood were important not only to me, but to those that I cared about, and also important to answering the question of what's important that I can actually affect. Like what good can actually be done through this. One lesson from my father was always, it's great if you care about something. What matters is what you do about it. Mm-hmm. It's the so therefore of life. It's great that you care, so therefore what? Do you invest? Do you ignore? Do you care? And care is a word of action.
Yeah.
So what are you doing or not doing? And not doing its own kind of action too. An important recognition is that we are, each individual, like a bundle of selves. There's not just a self. There's a bundle of selves, like a bouquet. And one day I can be this, and the next day I can be that, or 1 hour I can be this, and the next minute that. And to make a decision based on which element of myself is speaking at the moment can be unwise.
Yes.
And that there's a consolidated self. I think of it as a soul, actually.
Yeah.
That can be seen through those selves, but you have to be paying attention. And so the value of attention to yourself, right, and to what the universe is saying there, where it's resting, is not something you can do between calls.
It's really hard to do.
It's extremely hard.
Really
it's
hard to
very
do.
noisy, and there's very little in our life, corporate life, agency life, that rewards that.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of escape and retreat, or even silence. The time to pause and pay attention is antithetical to let's go, let's bill by the hour, let's answer that call, let's stack up our Zoom calls between 8 and 5, and then maybe you can work in the evening to contemplate on the next day. It's a bit of a poison to that, but then you just become reactive. It's all you're just a ball on a ping pong table. And there are moments when that has to happen. Sometimes you've got to be a wartime CEO, or sometimes you've got to be fully attuned to the element of yourself that's all about getting things done, about effectiveness, about the machinery of getting it done. And that's fine. But the ability to build consensus within yourself and listen to yourself fully is, I think, fundamentally key to being not only a whole person and certainly a good leader.
I completely agree. Did you know that at the age of 35?
Did I know that? No, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I had inklings of it.
Yeah.
Like little glimmers through the cracks.
Yeah.
So when you ask me, like, what's a turning point moment, I can point to this moment.
Yes.
When Whittle was ending, at least ending for me, that I recognized, these options are here for me. And these are not just career options, but they're options for who I want to be, like they're identity options. Do I want to be this person that's the campaigner and the West Wing hard charger kind of player, gamer? Was that really me? Or am I really a reporter at heart? And I love the curiosity of being able to. So who am I?
Yeah.
And knowing that each path would shape who I would become and who I would become for others. And that sense of always becoming, being on the bleeding edge of everything that I've been, but everything that I could be is the right place to live. And that was the first moment that I think I acknowledged that in a way that was practical, which you could write down on paper.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, yeah, fun.
Okay, let's fast forward to the creation of this small, tiny, little fly-by-night firm called Jarrard, Phillips, Cate, and Hancock.
Yeah. And for you to join us out of high school.
I know, right?
So
Wasn't that
fantastic. Thank you.
You made a compelling offer. No, so talk about that. Talk about the evolution from you're in the agency world. You've decided to go back there following Whittle. You've decided not to go to D.C. and to pursue political campaign life career. You made the decision alongside partners, but really you were the one who was the tip of the spear in the creation of a new firm. What was that like? What led you to that decision? What were some of the considerations?
Yes, I had. So to continue the story, I returned to Nashville after Whittle to work with this agency, and then got recruited by the Ingram Group, my old home, when there was a change happening at the Ingram Group, and that was when Tom Ingram was leaving for D.C. to be chief of staff for Lamar. So there was a vacuum that was being created there. And Louis Levine, who was the other member of the Ingram Group, who was a wonderful fellow, really had not a lot of interest in being and focused on leadership of the Ingram Group. So I was recruited to rejoin the Ingram Group and lead it, actually, which was a great feather in the cap for me at the time. And it was a place to learn agency life in a different way. It's one thing to be part of an agency or be part of a team. It's another to lead an agency or be part of the team. And I spent several years doing that and learned what I really liked about agency life, not just the work of having a variety of clients, which piqued my curiosity, but the work of leading a team and how a team can be pretty additive to your life and a work environment can be additive to your life, or it can detract from it, just suck the life out of you. And during that time, a couple of things happened. It's Nashville, so we began to collect a number of clients who were in healthcare and needed the political side of healthcare, the political thinking that could be applied to how they did what they did in healthcare, which was interesting. And as part of paying attention, began to notice that, and then had the incredible benefit of just finding Kevin Phillips and Molly Cate and you, and began working together as a team in a way that was certainly effective for our clients, but also friendly and enriching and more than what we brought individually to the table. There was something more there than just the sum of our individual skills and histories. And bringing those things together began to feel like an opportunity, not just for me, but for the four of us, of is there enough business, enough interest in what we do that we could continue to do this thing together in this unique fashion. But, and yeah, for sure, there was a business opportunity there, and there was a sense that in terms of business risks, we could take it and risk ourselves. But I think it was for sure the relationship that we had with each other that allowed it to happen. Mm-hmm. As I think about it differently, if we did not have those relationships, would the business have started? I'm not sure that it would.
Yeah.
If we were still fragmented, broken little pieces out there serving clients, why form a firm? Because the idea of us, and I think the best idea for any leader is when you create a leadership team, is that the leadership team could do anything. It just happened to be healthcare because it's Nashville and it's cause-driven enterprise and we're cause-driven people, and so that's a natural connection there. But there are other causes and there are other businesses that I'm confident we could have equally served if we had chosen to. Mm. It's the team and the people. It's the sort of mystery of that chemistry that makes it possible. And not just the business possible, but the way that we're successful.
Yeah.
This rich culture and this loving spirit is really rare.
I totally agree. We always said that the work we did was really special and purposeful and missional, but that the firm was our most important work. And it started really with the four of us. And there's so many lessons I've learned from you, but I would love your perspective on, as you founded this firm and grew it from the four of us all the way to now there's 90 of us here. Yeah. And of course, our work was mostly Nashville based, and now it's all across the country. I think we've only not worked in 2 states, Hawaii and maybe Alaska at this point.
Yeah.
On that journey, as our leader, what was most important to you from a leadership standpoint? What was important that you instilled in this place and in our people, and describe the kind of leader that you wanted to be?
Most important to me, and I think it's reflective from our beginning, is us. That who we are to each other, how we connect with each other, and the joy of working together has been fundamental to me. And I think fundamental to our success. I think the fun we have and the connection we have and the comfort we have with and the trust we have with each other not only is conducive of our business success, it's very attractive to clients. They see that energy and are drawn to it. They want to be part of it. And I'm very proud of that. So our focus on culture and who we are, instead of necessarily, although it's important, what we do and how we do it, are important, but they're all reflections of who we are. I think it starts with the who. I think it's true for you. We work around the country. We see these great leadership teams and leaders who have this gravitational pull to talent. Yeah. They draw great people together, and then they allow the team to become what it could be. We create, in a sense, and I think we created when we started, almost like a third thing. There's who we are as individuals. Here's the company, and between us, there's in a sense, a third person that's created, a third entity that's created, that we feed and it lives because of who we are in the spaces between us. And that's the thing I'm most proud of and want to continue to be sure is nurtured as we go.
So as you think about the most effective, most maybe authentic leaders that you've worked with, what are some of those character traits that make them that gravitational pull that you described?
It's a combination, I think, of humility, great humility, which is a reflection, I think, of attentiveness to the self, and confidence that they understand who they are and what they bring to the table. I think humility also allows you to see others right? And the strength that they have, but also the challenges, and recognizing everyone has challenges. Everyone is fighting those battles, but even their leaders in their own. So that sense of humility, I think, is important. But it has to be balanced with a bit of confidence, a little bit of strength, a little bit of spine. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's understanding in the give and take of a day of a leader or the year of a leader. Sometimes you need to be more this and sometimes more that. Sometimes you're more humble and you're disappearing off the stage as others step forward, and you're proud of that because you have that humility and confidence. But other times you got to take center stage. The other actors are counting on you because they're in that moment when they need it. You're so in tune with yourself and the environment, the landscape that you're in, and the people that you're around that it's like that you need to be who you are in the moment. Any number of metaphors. It's like sailing. You understand where the wind is going. You understand where the tides are and and so you're adjusting the sails to be who you need to be in the moment. What we see sometimes are tone-deaf leaders who are, by God, just going to be this, and they're always going to be that, or they're never going to be this, and they miss the moment, and they miss the opportunities.
Okay, so you've talked about whole self and knowing yourself and maybe the different versions of yourself and all of the various things in anyone's life that are priorities. So talk to me a little bit about how you've thought about work in the context of the other dimensions of your life, the other responsibilities in your life. And you raised 2 incredibly beautiful, successful children.
Thank you.
And I know you have so many other folks who are counting on you and other things that bring you joy and fill your cup. How do you prioritize being a CEO and working the way that we all work when we care so much about what we do, and then all the other dimensions that we have to pay attention to?
I think about it differently now than I did. Early on in my career and some of the trajectory that we've talked about, it was a lopsided approach to life and probably an unconscious approach to life where work was captivating to me, and I overweighted myself, gave it too much, and did not understand or appreciate the value of an integrated life. Mm-hmm. So it's not either or. It's a balancing act is not right as well, because when people use the language of having a balanced life or having the work-life balance, it's as if 2 elements of life are uniquely separate and therefore have to be balanced.
Right.
I've come to learn the importance of having an integrated life, where it's just one life. Who you are as an individual threads through your family and those that you love and the community that you serve, and the important things in life you're trying to live through and live out. How do you express the gifts you've been given, as well as work itself, which I think is an expression of that. I think when it's at its best, work is another kind of gift you've been given to take advantage of the time and resources that have been put in front of you. No more than, but no less than, other elements of your life. Weaving them together, I think, is really important.
Okay, David, we've talked about the characteristics of the most effective leaders. What do you think makes you most effective?
I think that everyone has gifts. Everyone has strengths
that
they bring to a conversation or a relationship or a team dynamic. I think one of my strengths is the ability to see potential in people, to see potential in a team, to see potential in an organization, and have an ability to articulate that and speak into individuals and speak into teams and maybe help them see something in themselves that they didn't recognize before, or see something in a team that it didn't recognize before, that it helps define it. Sometimes I think when you place a name on something, it becomes real in ways that it hadn't before. And that's not everything that a leader needs to be. There's other aspects that are really important, which is one of the reasons I have found being part of a team is so important, so someone can live fully into their strengths and lean on someone else, right, who brings their strengths. And it's that combination that creates this sort of powerful chemistry. It's like a flywheel that turns and turns and leads to the things that you cannot do individually, and you couldn't even do through just the sum of the parts, but do more than that. And so the ability to see that creatively and to help folks realize that is a strength of mine. And I look for leaders who are able to do that as well. I think there's an easy path to criticize, right, and talk about the problems and talk about the weaknesses people have and spend your time focused on everything that's wrong. It could be a little better. I think there's great joy in speaking to what's possible, right? And helping expand the parameters of what your career could be, what your work could be, what your life could be. That's a good place to be.
I love that. That's something I've always known about you because I've experienced it. I can attest to that being your greatest gift. Okay, so all good and authentic and real humans and leaders both are self-aware about their strengths, but also willing to admit maybe where they have gaps or challenges. What's your Achilles heel?
I've got a heel. I've got a gap. My gap is sometimes having the hardest conversations with people or firing people, frankly, which for me is the end of that story of someone's potential, at least in the little journey that we're walking together. And I work hard. I feel I've worked hard to look at the folks who are with me and talk about their potential and encourage them and give them capacities and resources to explore that potential. But sometimes I'm wrong, or sometimes they don't see it, or sometimes it's just not a fit. And my Achilles heel has been, in some cases, allowing that to go too long. And as I look back and think, what are things that I might have done differently in my career, it's moving faster to ending those conversations, both frankly for my benefit, but also for the benefit of the other people who are having to work with some of these other colleagues who aren't fit because there's extra work they have to do to fill in those sort of gaps, but also for that person. So they would stop trying to go down a road that wasn't going to be successful for them, even if they hadn't realized that yet.
Yeah, but is there anything harder as a leader who really, truly cares about his or her people than letting them go?
It's letting them go because you can see so much.
Yeah.
And so you have your own vision of what this could be if only this worked. But sometimes it just doesn't work.
This is true. Okay, last question before the lightning round. All right, so the best leaders prioritize habits that keep them healthy. What are some of yours?
Exercise has proven to be a great habit. At some point in my life, I've spent a whole period where I didn't do exercise like at all. And then I began. And the difference was bracing. I'm a morning person, so I'll get up early, and we'll read and contemplate, pray, think about some things that have absolutely nothing to do with this job or this work or what is on the outlook for my schedule this day. It's a kind of recentering, and then lean into the day. Okay, then you open the laptop and go, what's in the journal today?
Yes.
What's in the Times? Who's complaining about what or what's interesting?
Right.
What's good? But it's in context of something I hope that is bigger and more important.
I love that. I have a new rule that I'm not allowed to pick up this thing, my phone, and not allowed to look at my emails until I've spent that sort of time with myself. It's a new habit I've developed in the last couple of years, and it makes all the difference. All the difference.
It's amazing. Even in our time together, the phones have become a thing. Like when we started the firm, Facebook didn't exist.
No.
It's just remarkable. And I'm struck by how small these are and how they make us smaller. Right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
We think we're getting bigger, but the more we go into these smaller screens, the more small we get.
Yeah. The more we lose ourselves. You know? Yeah.
Nothing has encouraged us to be big.
I agree with that. Okay, you ready for lightning round?
Let's go.
Okay. Got to go with your gut on these things. You ready? Okay. Favorite thing to do on a Saturday?
Sleep a little late. Read in the morning, read things that I have not thought about for a long time, and walk. I love walk.
Nice.
Put in a podcast, get out in the breeze, see some trees.
All right, last time you tried something new.
I went snow skiing for the first time.
For the first time?
In my life, yes. And my measure of success is that I'm sitting here next to you.
Yeah, you didn't tear an ACL or an MCL. What did you think?
I think that if I had grown up snow skiing, I would love it.
Were you a little sore?
I was a little sore and a little terrified.
Yes.
Because this is not natural to get on 2 pieces of wood and go down this hill at many miles an hour. But the joy of it and just the fun of it, and all the people around it who just are in the culture of skiing all their life, it's great joy.
So beautiful, too.
It's very fun.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, book you're reading now.
How to Know People. Or How to Know a Person, which is the David Brooks book.
Yep.
I love his writing as a columnist and watch his maturity. And, of course, he wrote The Second Mountain and had written a number of books about exploring who you are and who we are as a community and as a culture and as individuals. This book is about attention and attentiveness and how to fully know somebody else beyond how you doing and what do you do for a living. I think it really speaks to the moment that we're in where people are craving attention. So much that they'll go into TikTok, they'll go into this little phone and just beg for attention. Look how interesting I am, how weird I am on street. Please like me. Please like me. Where we're hungry for it, which I think is important for leaders too, to give people attention so they can become themselves.
Love it. You've given me a library of books on business and on leadership. What's your favorite book on leadership?
Good to Great.
I knew you were going to go
Collins,
there. Jim
Good to
Collins,
Great.
man.
Formative, right in my life. He approached leadership not, his definition of leadership or the way he discussed leadership was not other good ways to talk about leadership, which is every day do this. Or this is how to spend your time or manage your attention, which is very important. His discussion about leadership was visionary. Who do you want your company to be? Mm-hmm. What kind of impact do you want your company to have with its colleagues and in the world? That vision of being great and bringing value was like a redefinition of what those words meant to me, and I've lived by those rules.
I think you gave me that book like 15 years ago, and you made me read it again like 10 years ago, and then I think again like 3 years ago.
It's still valid.
I love it. Okay, beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Bourbon or whiskey, or is there really a difference?
Is there really a difference?
I am from Kentucky.
Oh my God. Yes, there's a difference. Whiskey's great if you don't have bourbon.
Love it. Scale of 1 to 10, how uncomfortable has this revealing conversation made you as an introvert and typically private human?
It's probably a 6, a 6.5.
A 6.5?
Yeah. Because we've known each other for so long, I
I
feel
know.
my guard is lower than it might be in other situations.
I'm pretty grateful for you.
Oh, man. And for you as well. It's quite the combination. I
Indeed.
think. And what potential we have.
This is true. All right, I'm going to ask that question that all reporters ask at the end of an interview. David Jarrard, is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?
I take that apart as 2 questions. Is there anything else to share, and is there anything else you would like to share with us? I think these are a lot of the great highlights for me, but your questions have led me to think more about leadership, which is the value of good conversations.
Yeah.
So I'll be thinking more about it.
Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.